Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we answer the question, what is the best age to start planning for retirement? Now I know what you're going to be thinking. You're going to be thinking, well, Dre, obviously the answer is the earlier the better. And we were thinking that proverb that says, when's the best time to plant a tree? You'd say 20 years ago, and then the second best time is today. And the most important thing that you can take away from this video before we talk about the best age is let's address the three misconceptions first and foremost. Number one is that, hey, Dre, I'm okay. I'm going to live off of Social Security. Social Security is designed to only make up about 30% of your current income, and most numbers estimate we need 80% of our income in retirement. That means if your plan is to rely solely on Social Security, that's probably not going to work. You can actually see on the Social Security website that they'll be the first ones to tell you, please do not rely solely on Social Security to fund your retirement. The second misconception is it's too late to start. And that's not true either. Just like the proverb said, yes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is to plan it today. The actions that we take today will decide what happens in 2 to 5 years from now. The actions that we did 2 to 5 years ago decided what's happening today. There's little that we can do today to change what's happening today. Those decisions were made 5 years ago. Whether we bought a house or car or took that trip or took out different loans, different positions that we accepted at work when we had kids and paid for their college, all of those decisions that we made in the past are what is deciding the life that we have today. So you can't sit there and say, well, it's hopeless today, so there's nothing I can do about it today. Well, no, there's nothing you can do about it today because it's what we decided 5 years ago. But 5 years from now, if you make different decisions today, you're going to be in a completely different situation. It's never too late to start investing. Ideally, you would start earlier in your 20s because you have a longer time horizon, which just means I don't need to touch my money that quickly. And as a result, you can be more aggressive. And it gives you the ability to ride some of these waves. If you could think of someone that's 30 years from retirement, they could have been through 9/11, they could have been through the Great Recession, and they could have been through COVID. And they would still be up. If you look at the stock market over the past 25 years, they would still be up very significantly. And you can see that, but at the same time, if you're someone that had to but at the same time, if you were someone who had to retire, within a few years of any one of these events, then your retirement will look completely different. And as a result, that really means there's a different strategy that we have to take. It's not that there isn't a strategy that will work. And the third misconception is, I will work till I die. And the thought here is, well, I'm not going to stop working because I like the work that I do. I'm someone who's a busybody. I can't just sit around. I don't like golf. I don't want to sit on my porch. I don't want to travel. I think I just enjoy the work that I do. And I can appreciate that. I'm someone who's doing what he absolutely loves to do, and I have no intentions of retiring either. But the reality is sometimes our situations change. In the case of couples, I've seen where one spouse gets sick. And ultimately, it's very difficult for the other spouse to juggle work and taking care of their sick spouse. And they are forced to retire even though they're still healthy, even though they still enjoy the work that they're doing. But the time it takes to take care of their sick spouse is very draining on them. I've seen other situations where someone becomes disabled and now they no longer can function in the same manner that they used to. And as a result, they cannot continue working in the same capacity. And whether they had disability insurance or not may dictate whether they can continue receiving any sort of an income. But if they don't have disability insurance, then that means that they're retired. They may be able to continue working, but not in the same capacity. So they don't make the same amount of money that they used to. And as a result, they still have to dip into some investments to fund their overall lifestyle, or they have to significantly change their lifestyle. There are times where companies downsize or they're sold, where we're laid off or they go in a different direction, where they send entire departments overseas because it's a lower cost of living. There are times that our retirement was not decided by us, that the situation was completely out of our control. On that note, let's go through each of the stages of our life that shows why each stage has its own benefits, its own strengths, as far as the best time for us to be planning for retirement. If you start planning for your retirement in your 20s, that gives you the benefit of a longer time horizon. As we mentioned, that means that you have a longer amount of time before you actually need to touch the money. The benefit of having a longer time horizon is you're able to invest a much smaller amount and still have $1 million when you plan on retiring. If you start in your 20s, you can invest as small as $5 a day, about $150 a month, and you will have $1 million when you turn 65 and ready to retire. That is just with an average return of about 8%, and then you put $5 a day in the S&P 500, and it works out pretty well for you. Most people who start planning for retirement in their 20s can start with their employer-sponsored plans. They can look at opening their own Roth IRA. Normally, they're not making enough, so they still qualify for that tax-free investments. And they usually have a lower cost of living, which gives them the additional benefit of being able to invest more if they want to. Now, of course, they don't actually have to, because if you start in your 20s, you can invest a lot less. As we mentioned, a much smaller percentage of income. which means you can actually fund your retirement with as little as 5% of your overall income. If you're in your 30s are an ideal time to start planning for retirement because you're making more than you made in your 20s. You've already gotten your first job out of the way, or at least you've been promoted in the same company, and you're making more money. Now, normally in your 30s, you're probably juggling some more financial responsibilities. You probably have a house, maybe a car, possibly some kids, marriage. So you have other financial responsibilities that you have to juggle. But because you're making more, if you're able to invest 5 to 10%, as far as the dollar amount, you're investing more money. You still have a pretty decent amount of time before you retire. We're normally talking 20 to 30 years, which makes most financial plans very feasible for you to have over $1 million in retirement. You're still able to invest about 10% of your income, and then you're able to devote about another 10, 15, 20% either towards funding your kids' college, if that's something that's important to you, or getting out of debt because you made some less than stellar decisions in your 20s. You're able to really take advantage in your 30s of that higher income and more clarity around your goals, understanding that money is a tool for you to purchase your freedom so that you have the flexibility to decide how you want to live your life. Your 40s might be your ideal time to start retirement planning because you're moving into your peak earning years. When you look at your 40s, we're generally starting to make some really good money. Because we have some extra money that's sitting around, we're not really allocating it as best as we could. We've already been putting the money in our 401k. Generally speaking, we feel that there's probably something else that we can do. You start looking at some YouTube videos, start having some questions, and you're like, I want to be able to feel comfortable about my investments. Normally in our 40s, that's when we're really able to start diversifying our investments, whether that's in the stock market, whether that's purchasing a business or purchasing real estate. You guys know that those are the three asset classes that I talk about all the time because those give you access to the 6 streams of income that are outside of actively working. And when you're in your 40s, you're really starting to realize you have a better idea of what your overall goals are. And normally in our 40s, we still have 20 years until retirement. So that still makes it a very doable plan where we're not investing a whole lot of our money. Ideally, if we can get up to 20%, that really opens up a lot of flexibility for you. Now, in your 40s, that's when you really want to start thinking about your overall retirement strategy. Because while you do still have a pretty good amount of time before your retirement, there's some strategies that if we started now in our 40s, for example, if you're someone that's like, all right, I really want to focus on having tax-free income, and you start looking at some products offered by insurance companies, whether you're looking at an annuity, whether you're looking at whole life insurance, whether you're looking at long-term care, you really have to qualify for some of these, which generally means that you got to be healthy enough to qualify. So you really want to think about your overall retirement goals, think about your health, and whether or not you qualify for some of these insurance products because it's very possible that your 40s are going to be the last opportunity that you have to take advantage of them. And last, we'll talk about your 50s and beyond. That could easily be the best age for retirement planning because you're going to be making the most money that you're probably going to be making in your life. For most people, when we look at 55 to 65, that's going to be the most money that we're going to make. So in your 50s, you probably got rid of your kids. They're probably off to college. They're probably done with college. You're probably in a management position making a pretty good amount of money. Your mortgage, if you got it in your 20s or your 30s, you're probably over halfway done with your mortgage. And as a result of that, if you just think about inflation, that really means that your mortgage payment is actually a very, very small percentage of your overall income, unless you refinance your mortgage or purchase a new home or something like that, because that does happen as well. But your 50s is going to be really the time for you to take advantage of the money aspect of things. In your 50s, you have the catch-up provisions in your 401ks, your IRAs, and your Roth. You also are very clear on your overall retirement goals. You can feel the freedom as you're paying off debt. You can taste the freedom as your kids are getting older. So they're leaving the house, they're going off to college or they're graduating from college. They're getting married and they're getting their own jobs and taking care of themselves, where you're not spending as much on them anymore, where the food in your house doesn't cost as much. And as you gain that flexibility of income, that's why the 50s may be your best time for retirement planning, because you have more money and you got to figure out what to do with it. You could probably max out your 401k, but is that the best choice for you? You can probably pay off a lot of your debt, but is that the best choice for you? You can invest in crypto and AI and these meme and marijuana stocks, but is that the best choice for you? You can go buy that Corvette you always wanted because you don't have to seat 4 to 5 people anymore. This is a really important time as far as making decisions, and that's why it could be the best time for your retirement planning. By having a retirement plan in place, you can get really aggressive on your investments where you can make up for 20 years in 5. Where you're able to really start investing 20, 30, 40% of your income towards your freedom fund so that you can retire on your own terms. This is a great time for you to decide whether or not you want to delay Social Security. And I'll put a link to another video where I discuss ways to maximize Social Security, because in your 50s, if you're able to put the plan in place, you got 10 years to get everything ready. Where if you're investing in your health and you know for a fact that you're going to live longer, so it makes sense for you to delay Social Security. If you're putting money away for those bridge years so that you don't have to go into your Social Security before 70, All of these are plans that we put in place right now in our 50s. And it's also a great opportunity for you to explore things like long-term care insurance or the alternatives to long-term care insurance. And I'll put a link to a couple videos where I go over long-term care insurance, and also I go over some of the alternative strategies. As you can see, your 50s is a pretty important time when it comes to retirement planning. And if you're able to have all the pieces in place, then you're able to check off all three boxes of the wealthy retirement system. As you all know, I talk about all three of them. Number one is you want to make sure that you have the money right. Number two is you want to make sure that you understand the things that will bring you fulfillment and happiness throughout your retirement. And number three is you want to have your healthcare plans in place, both from the preventative aspect, because you want to feel your absolute best in retirement. When you have all your freedom and time, you don't want your body to give out on you, but also from the rising healthcare perspective. As I mentioned to you guys many times, we know that 7 out of 10 people 65 and older will have at least one long-term care episode. And that long-term care is normally going to be about $30,000 to $40,000 a year. And it's going to be about 3 years on average. Not necessarily a continuous 3 years, but 3 years on average. So you have to decide, how am I going to pay for that $150,000 bill? And in the 50s, you can give yourself the most flexibility so that you can decide not only your long-term care decisions, but also your Medicare, whether you want to use Medicare Gap, and I'll put a link to a video where I discuss that, or whether you want to use Medicare Advantage, and I'll put a link to a video where I discuss some of those decisions as well. But let's close with some practical steps to start planning at any age. First and foremost, you have to have an understanding of what money is coming in and what money is going out. This often requires you to get your financial house in order. You need to know your income, expenses, debt, and savings. Next, we need to outline overall retirement goals. What are our short-term goals, our medium-term goals, and our long-term goals? I tell you guys all the time, our short-term goals have to lead into our medium-term goals, which have to lead into our long-term goals. Ideally, you'll probably get 2 to 3 amazing long-term goals, but if we get it right in the short term, it's going to stack up and give us the ability to actually execute in retirement. So the next thing that everyone can do at any age is review your overall goals. Your goals are going to change. As we get older, we get wiser, we get more experience, and we learn things. We're exposed to new things. There are things that we simply did not know that we would like, and as we got older, we realized that later. Go ahead and review your overall goals and update them as things change. Ideally, I'm a big fan of having at least 50 goals written down because it gives you the ability to really spend some time with yourself. The first 5 to 10 goals are normally going to be the squeaky wheel, the things that bother us the most today, and if they were gone, we'd feel a lot better. But normally your 40 and beyond goals are going to be things that normally bring you fulfillment, things that you would love to do for free, people that you would pay to meet, experiences that you will talk about for 20, 30 years, pictures that you would share with other people. Those goals are going to be the make or break of whether you'll be happy and fulfilled in retirement or not. Third, you need to create your investment plan. I'll put a link to another video where I talk about some of the different investment strategies that you can use, but you got to put your money to work in a sound strategy, a consistent strategy, where you know that you'll be able to achieve your overall retirement goals because you have your money to work. The only way that we can retire is if we purchase all of our time back. And the reality is the majority of people are unable to purchase their time back. The numbers show that the majority of people are retiring broke every single day, that they have less than $5,000 in retirement, and that half of people who make $100,000 or more a year are living paycheck to paycheck. That 65% of the overall population of the United States lives paycheck to paycheck, and that the majority of Americans don't even have access to $1,000 in any sort of a savings account. And that's because the system, plain and simple, is designed to create lifelong employees, and it does a phenomenal job at that. So you want to invest in yourself and your wisdom and your ability to put a plan together that you can follow. If you want to be financially free, you got to have a financial freedom plan. If you want to be happy, healthy, and wealthy, then you got to have a happy, healthy, and wealthy plan. And then you got to stick to that plan. And the fourth practical step to start planning at any age is to seek professional advice. Now, whether or not the professional advice is by reading a book that they write, whether that is by watching videos that they put out, or whether that is meeting with a trusted advisor, I don't think any of us would be surprised to find out that the wealthy have a CPA, a financial planner, and a team of attorneys on their own staff. Now, you and I might say, I cannot afford to have a team of advisors, and that may be true. But the question ultimately is, why do the wealthy have that team of advisors? I think you and I would agree in most circumstances, the value of the advisor is worth more than the cost of the advisor. That's probably why the wealthy are making that decision. Generally, the wealthy aren't in the business of making poor financial decisions. That doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes, but it does mean that generally speaking, the value of an advisor should outweigh the cost of them, at least if we're doing it right. As always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching this video. You could have been anywhere and you chose to be here with me. I do not take it for granted. If you found value in this video, I simply ask for you to like and subscribe so you can continue receiving valuable insights on how to create your own wealthy retirement system so that you can worry less and live more. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.